Call to order at 7 o'clock. This town council regular meeting on October 11, 2022. If everyone please recognize the pledge of allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Seated. We have no proclamations of presentation, but we did receive a request from a resident for the scouts that are in a previous meeting for their silver award. Town manager's office is working on that, and once they have their award, they'll be provided at a later dates. So that brings us to item 5, which is public petitions, communications, and public participation on any subject in the jurisdiction of the town council with a 2-minute limits. Anybody on Zoom? All right, going once, or anyone in public? Going once, going twice. Item 6, public hearing items, we have none. So item 7A is reports of boards and committees responsible to council. I believe we'll be, for the firehouse subcommittee, canceling our meeting next week and rescheduling for the November meeting for an update. But we did get an email from, I think, Bev with a timeline of the bidding process, so we're working on that. And thank you, Bev, for that update.
Thank you.
And then Birch Grove.
Yeah, the Board of Ed tomorrow night considers whether to close out the project, so we're almost there.
I am not on that boat.
Yeah,
All right, that brings us to 7B, which is reports of town council liaisons, and start Councilman Murray.
I don't have any.
All right. Councilor Khan. Vice Chair Egan.
Nothing to report.
All right, someone has one out there. Well, for me, I have the Conservation Commission meets on Thursday. They will be doing a presentation, and I think that is about it. And we have a Water Commission this month, Bev. There's no Water Commission meeting this month.
Yes,
Okay, what date is that?
it'll be next Monday. I won't
Okay.
be here.
Okay,
So, yeah.
okay, I didn't see the agenda yet, so, all right. And that's it for me, so Councilman Nuccio.
I had another PTT meeting, and it was just finalizing more of the details for the event, which is this Saturday, 12 to 4 on the green. There are going to be at least, I think at least 5 food trucks, possibly, definitely 1 beer truck, possibly another with margaritas and cider. There is going to be face painting, henna, there's music on the green, tents, like we're closing down the road. It is going to be a big event, so everybody bring a friend, or 2, or 3, or 4, or 5. You come have some food on it.
Nice. All right, Councilor Luba.
Thank you. No meetings from the last session, but as far as for the Veterans Recognition Commission, as I've heard the passing Richard Tapp. There was a memorial for him this past weekend. And it's a very sad situation that that he had many years of service towards the town. So there was a very sad passing.
Yeah, he's a steadfast leader in the Wall of Honor. Town
Right.
Hall was
Right,
his child, and it's a great thing to have on in Town Hall.
exactly. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilor Luba. Councilman Yudichak.
Sure, I had 2 meetings on Monday night. First one, John and I both attended was the mental health task force. And everybody hopefully knows that the Wayland mental health survey went out last week. Please fill out if you haven't. I think, John, if I'm right, we've had over, I think 250 returns as of last Thursday, something like that. So that's good. I think it's open to the end of the month.
Oh, great.
That's what I believe was said. And then again, potential recommendations coming to the town council, so they're still ironing out details. Is mentoring, potential mentoring, career mentoring. That's something that's also offered by the HBCC and youth mentoring. There was also discussion or recommendation for diversity inclusion task force. That's still up in the air. They're looking to get more data. So we would have more information, and John, if I'm right, we're gonna vote on that next meeting.
It's my understanding.
Yeah. There was some good discussion around it. So we'll see what happens next week. And also the Recreation Advisory Board met on Monday night, discussed fall programming. The numbers are up on the instructional basketball, and discussed the funds that we're going to be discussing tonight for recreation programming. Mr. Dave Garrett, president of Tolland Youth Soccer, came. Also, he brought up concerns again about the irrigation being shut down, I think, Brian, during this drought.
Yes.
I also believe the advisory board talked about a possible policy around that. I think that's gonna be work in progress as well. And then they talked about ADA and capital improvements. That we brought up, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Councilor Leader checks. So that moves us to item 8.1, which is consideration of resolution for ARPA subcommittee funding use recommendation for recreation programs. I believe we have, in addition to Mr. Foley and Councilor Leader check and meet you on the ARPA subcommittee, we have Lisa
we do.
Hancock.
Yep.
And I believe, like, maybe I saw it correctly, there's Bruce on as well. Yeah,
No, Bruce, well, I don't think.
He's on vacation,
he's on vacation. Right?
but Lisa really is the backbone of the details on this, and the goal is to provide relief for residents to get back into recreation programs, or really to get back into recreation program for our kids. It's really the in my mind, the overarching goal is to get encourage everyone to come back out and really booster up those programs again. Lisa, you want to jump on that?
Sure, the ARPA subcommittee met, and I know this is, especially Tammy was behind a lot of this, as well as the entire members of the subcommittee. And what it is a way to provide some funding towards recreational programs to help get more involvement in those programs, to get that the citizens actively involved, get them out doing things again, as well as trying to beef up the recreational programs, since participation had dropped because of the COVID situation. What the committee proposed to do was to request an allocation for up to $200,000 over an 18-month period, or 2-year period, 18 months, excuse me. And so we have some information that Bruce put together to try to give some ideas of what sort of programs could be addressed. And there may even be a little bit left over based on his estimates of where he thought the numbers would go. What the recommendation includes is a 50% stipend or reimbursement reduction to the actual cost. And the reason for that, rather than 100% at no charge, is to also have buy-in, because if there's people out there who want to participate and it gets all filled up by the limitations within there, this will allow for more people to participate, as well as those having a buy-in into it to at least cancel if they decide that they're not going to participate. So it kind of helps in that situation. Now, we did just last week receive the second portion of the ARPA reimbursement for the next year. So the number that was in here of 1.3 million is now over $2 million. I don't have the exact number with me, but we added about another $1.4 million to this number here. So looking at the information here, this is some of the programs for based on the 50% discount for the 2 years. It just shows some of the types of programs and what they would cost, being some part of it as the summer camp, so forth. Our screen is broken, but what I can do, hold on,
Yeah, what you're gonna do.
hold on.
It's okay, don't worry about it, Lisa, seriously,
There you go.
I have it in front of me, so I'm fine.
All right. Now I'm having a hard time reading it in here as well. So it just kind of shows what it would cost for each of the 2 years, and the total amount was about 180,000 for each of the two years involved. And I don't know if Counselor Nuccio or Yudichak would like to add anything.
Sure. So, yeah, this is something that we've been talking about for a while and looking at the usage of the money that's coming in from COVID. It was really probably the most pure form of using this money to reverse the effects of COVID. We know our children were impacted higher than most as well, along with our senior populace. So this was our kind of our swing in a hit it out of the park of, we figured the 50% subsidization will bring more people back to the rec center where we've seen a drop off in participation. This will help. And it's getting kids out, getting kids with other kids, out doing things out in public, not at home, not playing on video games or just doing whatever, but actually up with recreation. This is also going to help the recreation department to get more people influx in and hopefully build up their attendance and such. So it's a drop in the bucket for what we're spending, and I think our return on investment is going to be fivefold. So
I just want to include, Tammy did a great job, and Lisa did a great job summing it up. Thank you. Worked it, I think, all summer.
there's a lot of me going, no.
I don't know if Tammy mentioned, it also does include some adult programs. And it's definitely went the entire town. And if we can approve it tonight, it can go, I believe, in Bruce's winter program.
Yeah, he has to have it by November. He has to have it soon in order to get it into the winter, community magazine and put in there that it's subsidized 50% to get more people in. He kind of has to have it by the end of it.
November 15th or
The
something.
magazine goes out in
Yeah.
November, I think, or
Yeah.
it has his deadline is the beginning of November. So that was kind of our rush to bring it to you guys, was make sure we get it out and advertised and out there to people. And I think, as Colleen said, it's not all adult program, it's only a few, but it was their most popular, like it was the most popular adult programming out there. And it's all programming that seniors could also attend, so.
I think we did a really good job giving a lot of details.
Yep. We like this. We
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
like this.
Well,
Well, are there any questions from other council members? Yeah, I think it's very straightforward. It's a very thorough request. Again, just kudos to Bruce, Lisa, everybody on the ARPA subcommittee that went through this process. With that, I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution as outlined in 8.1.
Make that motion.
So moved by Councilman Nuccio. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilman Yudichak. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. It is unanimous. Great. Now we are moving on to item 8.2, which is the annual meeting of the Tolland Public Library Foundation to discuss the foundation directors 2021-2022 accomplishments, 22-23 goals, through budget, as well as an overview of the foundation activities. And we have with us tonight Linda Byam, as well as Library Director Barbara Pennyjohn. And I do see Jan Rubino is a member of the foundation as well in the back.
Hi, everyone. It's good to see you. I know that we've met, but my name is Linda Byam. I'm the president of the Tolland Public Library Foundation. And part of my role in that is to come every year to give a report to the town council. Town council members are actually part of the Tolland Public Library Foundation. We are the board of directors. And we have several people that were their terms expired this year: Kate Farish, Kristen Morgan, Jan Rubino, Danny Tipton, and myself were expiring, and we've all asked to be reappointed to the board. So right now we don't have any vacancies on the board. And I just wanted to go through briefly. I had submitted a letter that gave all the details of our accomplishments and our goals, but I'll just go through and highlight just a few of the ones. Because we're really proud of what we do. We have an endowment we have several endowments. And so with that money, we're able to provide the library with resources and programming that is beyond what is typically available through the town. And so I'll just go through some of the highlighted ones. So we purchased, provided almost $9,000 for the new wall mounted media display in the children's room. That was going to be a big enhancement to that room. And now they can show movies, with the license that we already also provided. We also continue to provide significant funding for the Hoopla, which is a streaming service. That almost $6,000 that, or we've approved $6,000 worth of spending. And that's a service that, you know, Barbara, it is available to all patrons and they can take out, you know, audiobooks and movies and music, I believe, as well. We also provide funding for a service called Brain HQ, which is available for patrons at their home, and it's like a brain training service. And also the new one is Universal Class, which is an online continuing education service and offers town patrons over 500 courses in business health and test prep, computer training, homeschool, and many other areas of interest. And that's, you know, for a year subscription for that. Also, we also have new funding for something called Biblioboard and Creator, and it's like a maker. It's a publishing multimedia for people who are very creative, and they can use that that software to create stories, poems, videos to share. Also, we provided continued support for 2 mobile hotspots that are checked out quite frequently through the library, and families can come and use that who might not have consistent internet service at home for kids to do homework or job searching. Also, we have a Zoom license that we use for our meetings, and Barbara uses for some of her other meetings. We also continue to fund subscriptions to Ancestry.com, Job Now, and Event Keeper, which are used by patrons. Some are remote, but Ancestry.com has to be used at the library. We've also supported our 12th season of our popular Eaton Dimick Author King series, so where we have authors in to speak at the library. And also, I think one of the other last new things we did was we provided funding for purchase of like lawn games. So patrons can come in and use those, check those lawn games out and use for family gatherings and so on. And we continue to raise awareness of the foundation, because I know that there's a library advisory board, there's a foundation, there's the Friends of the Library. So we continue to try to let people know who we are, and it seems to be working. We continue to get bequests, you know, from patrons, and we get donations. We also get donations through United Way and employers, large employers in the area. We maintain our database of donors, and we have an investment advisor that actively invests our endowment and our other funds. And just in general, basically, our foundation focuses on like long-term investments in conjunction with the director and what her priorities are. So we continue to invest in what she thinks is the best programs for the library. Goals going forward, we have one really exciting program that we're working on going forward, and it's the Tolland Oral History Project. And we received some funding from this on the Tolland Community Grant that we've spent so far, but we will continue to fund it further. And basically, this oral history project will explore the lives of the residents of our town and bring their stories to life through digital media and public performance. Oral accounts of life in Tolland will be used to create a multimedia experience that will allow community members to connect with stories of the past. Our story will dive deep into life in Tolland, from family to work, agriculture to arts, and education and cultural identity. We're working with the Tolland Historical Society and digging through some of the oral histories that they have now. We've also been providing training on doing oral histories. So residents who may know people who can contribute to that can record the oral history, so we can have a bank to pull from. And so that will eventually culminate in some type of presentation or production. And we are thrilled to have Kristen Morgan on our board of directors, who is the director of the theater program at Eastern. I believe she just has a new position. So she has a lot of experience doing this. She's done some very similar types of projects there. So we're really excited about that. As far as other goals for the year, we just want to continue to provide funding in the direction that Barbara wants to move, in terms of, you know, having the Tolland Public Library as a community hub, and the priorities that align with that. And then we have our budget for this year, and we provide our financial records monthly to the town. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any. I can answer them, and if not, we have our treasurer and the library director here. I can answer them, so.
Before I open the floor, I'll just invite Barbara, if you have any additional comments about your relationship and how you work with the foundation.
Sure. I just wanted to express my gratitude to the Public Library Foundation for their support of the library. You've heard from Linda, the accomplishments for this year, they're significant. But the cumulative effect of the foundation's effort since its inception in 1996 is remarkable. They have provided so many things to the library, the projector in the program room, the 3D printer, the audio-visual equipment in the children's room, other equipment in the maker space, hotspots, lawn games, databases, computers. The library would not be what it is now without the foundation, and I am very, very grateful. Plus, they are a wonderful group to work with, very supportive, enthusiastic, and I thank them. Thank you, Jan. Thanks.
Thank you, Barbara.
Sure.
With that, I'll open the floor to any questions or comments from council members. Dr. Luba?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And so first off, thank you for everything that you do. I mean, I think that's great, you know, with the support that the library is getting. I know one of the questions that I've been getting from constituents is that, as you said, there's a lot of different organizations tied in with the library and the library functions. And so just for the library foundation, now you're essentially providing and obtaining outside funding for the support of the library. Is that, so that's basically the role that the foundation has?
Right.
Okay. And if there was concerns or questions from residents regarding the operations or other things involving, like, you know, publications at the library, functions at the library, or other similar things, that'd be more in the role of going directly to Barbara or going to the advisory board. Is that
Right, because we basically, the way that we work is, we have meetings with Barbara 5 times a year, and we have like a grant process. So she'll come to us with an idea or a project that she would like to have funded, and then she'll present it to us, and we'll discuss the pros and the cons. And then if we approve that, then we provide her funding. Really the only exception at this point to that is the Eaton Dimmick King author series. And that's something that the board members initiate. And that's only because we have a journalist on our board, and she has a lot of connections to authors that she can leverage to provide that author presentation. But for the most part, it's through Barbara's her directives. So we're not providing the content or the programming. We're just fulfilling the need in response to her request for that.
And so, and the meetings are open and to the public.
Yeah,
So if anybody wanted to participate in or listen in as far as what's being proposed, they have an opportunity to do that as well.
Absolutely. They, I submit the agenda to the town clerk, and it's posted. All right, Barbara, post it. Yeah,
Yeah, I think right now you're
oh, yeah,
still doing 100% Zoom.
we are for the
Yeah.
next year. Yeah, so,
Okay.
yeah.
And and thank you for that. It's just because it's confusing for some people as far as what the various roles are, because as you said, there's several different organizations, several different
Yeah.
groups that have input on the library. So
Right.
that's all I have.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Councilor Luba. Any other councilors? Councilman Michio.
I want to say, you know, thank you guys for what you do. I know it's been a long time you guys have been doing this, and it's a nice add for the community. Not only for people to give, but also for you guys to kind of help provide services and such in the library. I wanted to ask about the oral history project. I've seen a lot of emails about it. I haven't been able to come to a single one because they all conflict with everything that I have to do. But I'm just wondering if you can kind of give a little more detail about that, and how are we reaching out to our seniors in town and stuff like that to give them an opportunity? Because I know at the senior center, we had talked before about, at one point, I think it was middle school or the high school, some of the kids came in to kind of like buddy up with a senior to kind of learn about them and their history. And I think that's something that we're lacking in the schools and that connection to that prior generation. So I love this project. Everything about it I love. Like I said, I haven't been able to get to any of them. So what are we doing for outreach to kind of bring in our senior population?
Well, what we've done so far is believe that there's been two training sessions that we've had. And I was just telling Steve earlier, the last one that we had was really neat. We had it at the jail museum. And when we had that there, a lady showed up to do the oral training, but not to learn how to do it or to be able to train someone else, but to have her oral history taken. And she was a woman that had lived most of her life in Tolland and had a lot of really interesting stories. So she sat and Kristen did her oral history as we recorded it. And it was wonderful. She talked about, going to dances on the green and having a really wonderful life in Tolland. So I was able to see firsthand how to do that and to see this woman who wanted to share her story to do it. And to have it, thoughtfully asked and to be told in her own words. And so we have also decided to provide training at the senior center. So there will be another session. I don't know that that's been scheduled yet. Yeah, I don't think it has been, but it will be, and it will be publicized through the library and the town channels. And anybody is welcome to attend it, but we figured if it's going to be at the senior center, then it'll be more likely people can either show up and have their oral histories taken, or they can be trained. They can come, like at our last training, there was I think it was a grandmother and a daughter who came. And one was planning on taking the oral history of the other, so they came to figure out how to do it. And then we have equipment at the library, cameras and phone stands and recorders, video recorders, that if you don't have equipment to do it, and instructions on how to take it, sample questions to ask, and scripts and so on, that they can use to help do the oral history, and equipment to check out to do it, and then a way to put it into the thing.
That's great. Bev, will you guys be advertising that at the senior center to try to, because we've got some seniors here that have lived here for, 70+ years, grad their entire families here and everything. That,
Right.
Families that have been linked to Tolland for well longer than I've
And
been.
we do have some of them recorded. I'm gonna try to get them to you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and also, when you were at the senior center, if you remember the board, we used to have up
Yeah.
highlighting a senior and their history. So I'm gonna ask him to look for some of that material.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
And you can give it to me and I can give it to Kristen.
No worries.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be, if you know of a senior, you can come and, get the information and do the oral history of somebody that anybody can be involved in the project.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm actually doing an interview on Thursday at the library. Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
And, okay, this is.
so anybody can do the interviewing of anybody else.
So this is gonna be like a stretch of a leap of a question, but have we reached out to the school to see if seniors would like to? Seniors
We,
in college would
Kristen
like
and-
to interview seniors and.
Kristen has been talking about, reaching out to the schools and particularly the English departments in the schools. So I'm not sure exactly where that stands at this point, but that is part of the plan.
That's a good bridge, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Next generation from the prior generation, that would be that'd be
Yeah.
great to see.
Yeah, so I'll make sure that, you adjust that.
That's really it. Thank you guys again for what you do, for the programming that you provide, and that I still can't figure out how to use ancestry.com. I've tried like 5 times, and every time I go down there, I'm lost. I have no idea what I'm doing. I think I need like a one-on-one tutorial on how to use it, so.
I think they just have an advertisement for the IT tech training or.
Yeah.
I think, yeah,
Ancestry, I thought that was like tech.
yeah,
Like
it might just be the library staff.
Can they? Cause
Yeah.
I seriously, I've tried like 4 times to do the family tree thing, and every time I get spiraled and I'm lost. I have no idea.
We've
Can't
got
figure it
patrons who would help you too, actually.
out. That would be wonderful. Can we do that in like maybe December? That'd be great.
Thank you, and I think also to add on to that, I think Barbara, I was in the library recently, and you were talking about doing more with Kim as well, and there's like some connections that you were trying to do earlier on when Steve Worker was around, and now that there's a new senior center director and there's some changes going on, that there's opportunities there to create more programming and possibly get more outreach, even maybe, I forget if it was under you or a prior director, that they used to do deliveries to people that were had mobility issues? What's that?
I paid a delivery last week.
That's awesome.
That actually brings up a good question. Are we partnering at all with Parker Place? Like, because they're close, like to,
They come up.
They
a
come up.
lot, Yeah.
okay. I think that would be a good opportunity for them, not only technology and everything else wise, but outing and books and magazines, newspapers, like all that stuff, so.
And that accessible pathway.
We have that pathway,
Yeah,
exactly. We
yeah.
got the pathway.
Are there any other questions from council members? All right, seeing none, I think we'll have the reappointments on our next agenda, so
Okay,
people look out for that.
great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to 8.3, which is a consideration or resolution for the town council to approve the local bridge program for fiscal year 2023 funding application. I'll kick that over to Brian and Lisa.
Through Department of Transportation, there's 4 bridges that are in need of repair identified here in town. And when I say bridges, I mean, one's a bridge, 3 are culverts, the pipes that go under the ground, in layman's terms. We want to apply for monies to help pay for that. And it started out at, I believe it was 80% was the first initial, and now it's going to be 100% paid for. As we might have to, Lisa will explain, to put some money up front until the drawdown and everything. So obviously, I think it's a good opportunity, 100% funded by grants, with some efforts on Lisa's behalf to get it done. Lisa, you want to talk about that?
Sure. As Brian stated, this was originally an 80% grant, but now there's a 20% funding. What will happen is with the design portion of it, the state will pick up the 20% funding piece through that process. So during that process, we won't have to put any cash out up front. But once we get into the construction process, which is the other 80% of it, then we will have to front the cash and then request reimbursement. So we will have to be making sure that we're turning around on those reimbursement requests very quickly. So the timing of those is what's going to matter. It's all going to depend on how many we do at the same time, how quickly they go, how much cash is needed up front. We won't know that until we actually get the actual bids in place and the time frame, knowing just what projects are going and how much cash will be needed based on those timeframes. So if there's enough cash to front with just our general operation cash and then get it reimbursed, turn around, we should be okay. If it turns out that we're doing all 4 projects at the same time and there's a significant request and the turnaround for the grant reimbursement could be anywhere from 2 to 4 months, we may have to look at other ways of managing the cash flow for those projects. But like I said, I won't know that until we get closer to the process. We may have to delay some of it, do it in a different year versus all at one time. Otherwise, that would require us to have to go out for some short-term debt. It would not be long-term bonds, but however, that would incorporate a cost of an interest expense to the town, which would not be reimbursed. So what I'd like to do is, by all means, try to avoid having to come up with cash flow in that manner. So once we know where it goes, then we decide from there just how to schedule it so that we could try to fund it with cash on hand.
DOT told us 2 months would be the reimbursement time. That's we can't count on that. So and 2 months was their long number, right? They said it could take as long as, and so being pessimistic, dealing with the state for so long, we just have to be careful. So.
Are there any questions from council members? Councilor Nuccio?
So, we're just applying right now?
Yep.
Is this like, do we know if this is more of I'm trying to remember which one this is. We're not guaranteed this. We're gonna go through a process and get approved, or is this pretty fairly?
I thought it seemed like we're gonna get it.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly have to go through the process. But it sounded as if they're trying to really maximize on the amount of cash that will be available for all of the communities that will be applying. And it sounded as if, I can't say guaranteed, but we would have a very good chance of being awarded for these particular 4 projects.
Well, I'm just, yeah, because we're talking about almost $16 million for the four, give or take. So we're confident we're gonna get that.
I am.
Well, obviously, we.
They came to
cannot-
us,
If we don't
Right,
get
I
it,
remember.
we can't move forward with it.
Well, that's,
You know.
that's my concern, because just reading this, it says that we have to have the cash up front until the grant is awarded and the timeline is set. So I just want to make sure that the town's not gonna move forward on any of these projects until we've got grant funding assured.
Oh, sure, that absolutely. This just allows us to move forward to request the grant. The next piece of it is having to put the appropriation in place, which would have to go to public hearing and all of that. And at that point, then we would know, exactly what we were going to be awarded for a grant and going forward at that point. And again, I would have a better handle on just how much cash we would need to move forward.
That being said, Tammy, we would have to do those bridges at some point down the road, as the DOT has put a pretty high percentage rating on all four.
Mhm.
But we wouldn't be moving on all four without.
At once, right, yeah, we'd be spreading them out. So with DOT saying it's about a 2-month reimbursement, which probably means it's about a 5 to 6 month reimbursement, after it's approved and done. At that point, are we considering, depending on how we're doing, I know that, again, I would rather not incur interest if we have to, are we considering levying the general fund? The I don't want to call it the rainy day fund, because it's not, but
Well, actually, that's what we would be doing.
no, not the stabilization fund, the bigger one.
We would
Okay.
be utilizing idle cash flow. For example,
Yeah.
in July, we collect
Right,
a good 50% of the taxes that will get us through to December
Right.
for operating expenses. So there will be some cash on hand at that period of time. By December, it starts getting low again. We do
Right.
another collection. So we would be leveraging those funds. We would not be, using them and not reimbursing it, but we
Right.
would be just using that idle cash flow.
yeah, I'm just trying to think if, as you said, if we have the 4 projects. And do we have the capability? Are we allowed with the state grant to stagger them over a couple of years?
We discussed it with DOT, and the issues that we would have doing them all at the same time, or the savings that we could get by doing multiple together, and they didn't say that we couldn't stagger them at all.
Okay,
And because they're close together in the location, they might get one contractor that might bid on these, and
right.
it'd be more cost effective to do that.
All right, so then we can both the ones that are closer together. Possibly go over in timeline.
Yeah.
So we're not hitting it all in one. All right, that's good. That's my concern. if we can avoid paying.
That long.
Yeah, if we can avoid that, then that's always gonna be mine.
And the beauty of this is that they're paying for design, and that's not what DOT, and I think they must have got some federal money as well. So when other towns are taking advantage, and
Yeah.
Ellington, a few others surrounding us, so. It would behoove us to get our paperwork in order and get that
Exactly.
to DOT as soon as possible and draw down, so.
The quicker you get the application into the process, the better chances you have of getting everything funded.
And setting up a system so we get recoveries, really quickly.
Right, and turning that around.
So we can do that. We're on track to get this in early.
I have the
Oh,
application right here.
we're all set, except.
All we need is Brian to
I
sign it.
just need
We know already.
to go forward with it, and if you have any specific questions,
Chuck,
our engineer just came online.
He'll
as
help
well.
us put the
He helped.
applications together.
Thank you.
That's all I've got. Thank you guys very much.
Are there any other questions from council members? Councilmember Murray?
Yeah, I'm wondering how these 4 bridges were selected.
Chuck, you want to talk about the DOT's process for rating the bridges in their need of repair and the percentages they assign them?
Sure. So, basically DOT has, over the past few years, they've been rating the different town-owned bridges in the state. And these bridges are eligible based on the fact that they're 20 feet, they span 20 feet or wider. And then they have to have a rating, which is determined based on the inspection of a certain amount of deterioration. And I know that these 4 bridges that are on the list here, those have kind of been trouble bridges for quite some time. I remember looking at the South River Road Bridge back, I don't know, 10 years ago with Clem. And I know Scott's been trying to tackle the industrial park bridges for a few years now. So these 4 bridges are all of the bridges that are eligible on that list in Tolland.
Okay, so there are no bridges that are eligible that are not on the list. So that's good to know.
Correct.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, are there any other questions from council members? All right, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution as outlined in 8.3.
So moved.
Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, that is unanimous. Thank you, Chuck. Thank you, Lisa. We'll move on to item 8.4, which is consideration of a resolution for the town council to approve the reuse of capital project funds for a boiler and controls replacement at Tolland High School. And it looks like we also have on with us tonight Pete Saba and Dr. Willett from the Board of Education. What do I help you?
Yes, so you have 3 boilers at the, no, I'll try to put it into a nutshell here. 3 boilers at the high school. One's been broken since 2021, the heating season of 2021. Should another boiler go, we're gonna have to close schools on extremely cold days and obviously extend the school year. I'll push it over to Dr. Willett to explain it more gracefully than I just did here as to the cost, which is around 85,000 and why they need it so bad.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. I think Mr. Foley did a great job explaining it. Really, it's just simply that the building runs on 3 boilers, and one of the boilers started to crack, and then water started pouring out of the burner last year. There were limited options with the supply chains last year, and so given the importance of this unit as we head into this winter, we did the best we could muddling along. But if one of the other 2 were to fail this winter, as Mr. Foley said, we wouldn't be able to maintain the appropriate temperature levels at the school building or in the school building with only 1 boiler. So it's very important that we get that repaired. Ms. Hancock had recommended at one time that potentially we could use the UISF or USIF fund for the boiler. I know that we do have funds in there of a couple $100,000 at the end of at least 2021. It was 263. I think, Lisa, you could say where we are now. But there are funds available in the USIF account. This is a use of the USIF account. This would qualify, I believe. And so making the allocation from the USIF account would be valuable here. Also, what we would like to do is, instead of using the 85,000 that was requested for the boiler filters, because this project takes priority, we would recommend routing that 85,000 instead to the repair of this and the installation of control systems for it. So Pete, I don't know if Pete, I see, is on here. If you're able to hear me, do you want to add anything to that?
Hello guys, I don't see myself in the screen here, so but I do see Katie, so wave. Thanks Katie. I know, Walt, I mean, actually you said it really well. Part of the issue that we had was these are very large Dietrich boilers, 6.5 million BTUs each, for a 235,000 square foot building. We were doing our startups back in the fall of 2021. Boiler 1 and 2 came on okay. Boiler 3, within an hour or 2, we saw very large puddles underneath the mid section, as well as water coming out of the front of the unit where the blast chamber is in there, which was not a very good sign. So we had to kind of tag out that unit then. We brought in a couple different vendors who identified at least four crack sections. these vendors have given us numbers to not only fix the boiler and do hydro testing, but also have given us numbers to replace that boiler as well. We had limited options back in the fall of 2021. Dietrich was non-responsive, was not able to give us a time frame on getting gaskets to actually, once you start to change each of the sections, you have to re-gasket those sections. They had no delivery time on those gaskets then. We are looking at somewhere 4 to 6 weeks on those now. So the other problem is too, with last year's, we probably would have overpaid even more than what we're paying for now. But the issue becomes, we're just kind of treading a fine line on what's risky. With 2 boilers running, if there's no issues, you can manage even on days where it's 0. When it is 0, you do have both boilers running at the same time, and with no extra capacity at all in case one of those fails. The other thing we identified is all 3 boilers have integration into the management system through ABS, but there are individual boiler controls that are on each boiler that are used at boiler setup to configure your mixing rates of fuel, your burner efficiencies, and so on, your combustion rates. And those boiler controls are actually Honeywell controls that they no longer offer any programming support or service or replacement parts for any of those 3 controllers on those 3 boilers. So the thought was to fix boiler 3 and to upgrade the boiler controls on all 3 units, which would hopefully get us out of this period now. I'm going to say from my perspective, boiler replacements will probably show up in my capital plan within the next 7 to 9 years. But at this point in time, we're just playing with fire with only 2.
All right, thank you, Pete. I'll open the floor to questions from council members. One quick question. Are the Honeywell controls from when there was kind of that energy savings contract between the town and Honeywell? And is that why the controls are obsolete?
No, those specific controls are back in 2005 when that school was built. Honeywell's integration into the management system, they actually brought in some controls back in 2014, but the actual controls that configure the burner and so on are original to school construction back in 2004 and 5.
Okay, great. Thank you. Open the floor to other questions. Councilman Nuccio, followed by Councilman Murray.
So I'm looking at the capital plan that we put in. Why wasn't this in the capital plan?
Biggest reason why was because my capital plan had already been submitted from the Board of Ed side before this even occurred. And to make it part of the current capital plan that I finished in August of this year, when we're trying to repair a boiler as opposed to trying to forecast out something that was planned, that's not really what this is. We had also flirted too with possibly trying to go insurance. The problem is you would have had a 16 to 17-year-old boiler that they would have put a depreciation number on that. So with that said, it didn't really fit the capital criteria, except the fact that it was over $10,000. It was something that we had not planned for. And based upon the Board of Ed's capital timeline. My portion was actually finished in September of 2021 for my stuff. So really didn't have a chance to really make it part of any of these packages.
So it wasn't broken prior to that?
No, we did start up last year somewhere on the date of October 16th. We did start up this year on October 4th because of the way it's been cooler of late. It is Russian roulette with that school because you are stuck either with the chillers running or the boilers running. You cannot have both running at the same time as you do have a single pipe system.
Okay, would you happen to know, Pete, what's the replacement cost for that boiler?
We have a couple different numbers. They range in 188,000 to 217,000.
And if you repair this, the expected life of the repair?
I would expect the life, as long as we can maintain water quality, which is the biggest issue with these boilers. One of the reasons why I was trying to filter out boiler as well as chiller water. The high school is fed by Tolland water, very high in iron, minerals. Since the 8 years that I've been here in Tolland, I've been paying to have the water treated. I don't know what occurred before my time here. You could have had 7 or 8 years where that water was not being treated. So as long as we can maintain water quality, you should be able to get 30 years out of it.
Out of the repair or out of the boiler?
In general, even after the repair itself. Yeah.
Okay, because I thought you just said that you were looking at replacing the boilers in the next few years of the capital plan.
Well, no, I said in 7 to 9 years. So we would be in year, roughly 27, 28, looking at that.
So I guess from a CDA perspective, I'm looking at if we spend 180,000 now, we get a brand new boiler and we're staggering what our 3 boilers put in at the same time, which will probably die around the same time. If we spend 180,000 now to get a new boiler rather than 85,000 to repair, cost benefit analysis of that staggers one of our 3 over 30 years, gives us a new boiler, and would that be more beneficial? And we have the money in the USIP to cover that.
I am concerned about USIF, only because I am concerned about forecasting out beyond the year of 2024, when our supply contract expires in December of 2024. You have forecast out there of electrical supply rates of anywhere from 11 to 15 cents on the dollar, and you're currently paying 0.065. So that is a tremendous amount of risk to drain that fund when you have very uncertain energy issues, for the next 2 to 4 years here.
Pete, just for clarification too, you said 188 to 207, so you're looking at 103 plus more to replace rather than repair, with respect to Ms. Nuccio's question. But in the repair scenario, you probably can get some people out here to do that in fairly short order. With respect to replacement, given the supply chain problems that we still have, we were facing major ones last year, but considering the price of everything, metal and everything else, those are probably so high right now that if we were to wait a few years, it might actually balance out a bit for the other 2 if we bought them new. Would that be an accurate statement, or I'm kind of just presupposing here?
Yes and no. I think if the hard part is I'm trying to forecast out, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. So I'm going to have to add inflation on whatever figure that I'm looking at now, regardless, just to protect ourselves a little bit. To answer your question, there is still supply chain issues on burners, which we should not have to change our burner in theory on boiler 3. We didn't see that as being an issue. It was strictly cracked sections within the current boiler. And that would delay the install of a new install as opposed to the repairs based upon a short supply chain of burners. In looking at out on costs, I would forecast out, if we're doing the boilers themselves, you would probably see, 650,000 plus inflation at that point on those. But then again, I would expect things to start to level off at some point a little bit, at least on some of the products.
I think that's kind of my point, Pete, is I think, when these hit, we're looking at, by the time you get out to there, you could be looking at $750,000 to replace 3 boilers, which we're gonna, again, then have on the same exact life schedule. To replace them again at the same time, when at this point, we could just buy a new boiler now, rather than spending $80,000 to patch it over, spend the extra 103 and get a new boiler and have staggering of replacement of all of those. I'm just thinking long-term costs and across the board.
Yeah, I kind of get it, and we've been hemming and hawing with it. The only part that I am concerned about, and Lisa knows this, is just the use of balance is also there for protection in case energy costs fluctuate a lot. And right now we are in a very good position, both on the Board of Ed and the town side, on really fuel costs, on electrical supply costs. That figure is going to drastically change after our contract expires in the December of 2024. So I just, from a budgetary perspective, it's going to be a big difference. That's all. I'm just kind of being cautious on that part.
Lisa, did you have your hand up?
I was just gonna
No,
Yeah.
no, I'm agreeing with Peter regarding the concerns for the future. And, again, we won't know until we see what happens going forward, but everything is projecting that those costs of electricity are going to go sky high. We've been really fortunate to lock in the low rate that we've had over the past few years. But going forward, there will be changes to that fund. The other thing is we did raid that fund for a lot of other capital items for energy efficiencies at the Board of Education in the past couple of years. This 85,000 was part of funds that have already been taken out of the use of fund. It's been allocated for a different project at the school. But as it was expressed to us, this was a higher priority than the project that it was allocated for. So I totally understand trying to, extend it out and not have to replace everything at the same time. Peter, how long did you say this repair would gain us?
Well, in theory, the repair should give us or get us to the other point that the other 2 boilers are currently now. The nice part about these boilers is that if you are dealing exclusively with cracked sections, you can go and change out cracked sections. That's part of the nice part about these. They're intended to expand and contract. And sometimes you do get ones that will crack. Part of the issue is, the most important thing affecting boiler water is water quality, and fluctuations in temperature. So if we continue to do a good job with that, I don't foresee a lot of issues.
Excuse me, Peter, are you saying that by doing this repair, it's not really going to extend the life of this particular boiler past the life of the other two. Is that correct?
Only because you have, I forget how many sections there is in this thing. There's probably 18 sections or so in here. There might be 16, I might be off a couple. And we're only doing a quarter of that. Okay, so you still have the risk that other sections could crack, just like you have a risk that other sections on other boilers could also crack. It is likely, though, I will say that where you first get a cracked section, you will start to get sections cracked near it because of stress in that specific area. So if we inspect the rest, and that's why the cost is what it is you effectively have to disassemble the entire boiler. You have to pull your permit, you have to get your boiler inspected, you have to rebuild it, re-gasket everything. You're effectively building it, taking all the parts apart and rebuilding the entire thing. And during that time, we're going to inspect every piece that we can't see now too.
Well, just a point of clarification, because I want to confirm this for myself too. It's a difficult situation. Timing wasn't great, for any part of this, but if we go to get a new boiler, Pete, is it going to take, potentially well into the new year before we could actually get it? Because the problem here is we can't be in the middle of November, December, or January and have a boiler fail and not have the schools be able to be heated. And I think that's part of the issue here. So I think I may be wrong, but that's why I want you to clarify, Pete. Getting the repair would happen sooner, and getting a replacement could go well into the new year, and that's part of the issue.
You are roughly 4 to 7 weeks on a repair versus 3 to 4 months, best case scenario, on a brand new unit.
Okay, Lisa, did you have something else you're gonna?
No, I think the timing of everything is what's gonna play here. If they're at risk of having to shut down the school, that's my only concern. Again, I agree with Councilor Nuccio that if we're gonna be throwing good money after something that if we had another 100,000 to get it to address the situation sooner and stagger it, that is a good idea. However, the priority of what has to be done, I think, has to be weighed here. Some of the other things that I think we need to start thinking about going forward is also, if these boilers are coming up, we should really be starting to look at maybe putting money aside every year and start building a reserve for those particular items. If we have any sort of game plan estimate, I know we have so many demands on the capital funds right now. Once some of the debt starts coming off, we'll be in a much better position, but that's not for a couple more years.
Been hearing that the whole time I've been here.
I know. Well, if we stop adding debt, then we'll be good.
Gee, is that not what I'm trying to say right now?
Another alternative here is that this would be something that would be beneficial for the ARPA fund to consider. If that was something that the committee would think about it, it certainly is a capital item, which is some of the things that we'd be looking at, and something of this magnitude, depending on how much is left in the USIP fund, we could do it that way. Otherwise, it would have to be debt issued if all 3 boilers went at once. There's no way that fund could cover all 3 boilers at one time. So there's different ways of looking at financing it if that were the way the council decided wanted to go. But certainly, I think we have to weigh the situation of, is it going to shut down the school if it fails? I'm not the expert on that.
You jokes, I think Councilor Murray and then Councilor Luba next. Right, Councilor Murray.
So, it is a little hard to hear that this has been down for over a year, and now we're being asked to make a decision or about a year, sorry, and we're now being asked to make a decision where time is of the essence. That's difficult to hear while I'm sitting here. However, that's what we have right now. If I understand this correctly, we have what's being asked of us is to approve using funds that would otherwise be used, I think, for filtration to repair this boiler and replace the controls. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And if we approve that, then this Board of Ed would put this, would get the repair done in, I think you said, Pete, 3 to 7 weeks, so soon, it would be done very soon. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right, and that would put the school, that would make you guys feel better about having the heating resources you need in the high school.
That is correct. I mean, as you guys are well aware, we want to avoid, having the homecoming dance parties with freeze ups in the girls' locker room like it occurred in, I think it was 2014, where everybody was standing outside. So we do have issues, obviously, with a single pipe system. Freezing up of lines is critical. You can't switch over to anything else. You do need to heat that water that's going through those lines. And, on colder days that are cold plus windy, I'll have 2 boilers running pretty much the entire day. It's just risky to not have a third.
Okay. Just finishing off a school project, I know that the intent was for all the things we bought for Birch Grove to have a 20-year lifespan. It sounds like this boiler we didn't get our 20 years out of this one.
You did not get your full 20.
There weren't.
Yeah, warranty,
warranty.
right? That's where I'm going next. There's no warranty on that.
No, not at this point. Even from a manufacturer's perspective, most of them are going to be 10 years on the chamber. The other problem that we have is the initial installer went out of business about a year after the school was finished being built there in 2005. They depreciate the warranty as well, based upon the age of that boiler. So we're kind of in that gray area where it's, if this was year 23, I think every one of us would be sitting here and saying, okay, let's just get the brand new boiler. But really, we should have gotten more than 15 or 16 years out of it. That's my own opinion. And I do physical needs assessing, and I do not put a 15 or 16-year lifespan on a $200,000 boiler. I just don't, because if I was telling my clients that were paying for my services that they need to set aside, and amortize 100% of the item that they're paying for in 15 years, they're going to look at me and decide to go out of business. So
The other area that I want to just clarify is about the filtration. You were talking about how the water quality impacts the lifespan of these boilers, but are we taking money away from water filtration to address repairing of this boiler?
the not having the boiler up and running is more severe than adding the filtration to improve the equipment that is there that has already sustained some of the I would call it the effects of water that also has to be treated. So our filtration system would be, the plan was to use that on both the chillers as well as boiler water. And it also helps all of the loops. So it helps all the valves and the unit ventilators, the rooftop units, everything. Helps to keep them from getting stuck as often, changing out actuators and so on. So that's why that was initially there. It seemed like a very good use of item because it would, in my opinion, extend the lifespan of the equipment at that school. However, we're sitting in a position right now where if funds are limited, we have to weigh the options of closing school or having to adjust school as opposed to, filtering out water there.
Okay, that's a bummer, but
Personally, I would like to see that item come back on the list at some point again. But at this time, my entire yearly HVAC budget is somewhere about 70,000. And I can't exhaust every penny I have on this, on this one item and not do anything at all. I mean, it's just the way it works.
thank you. And so, Lisa, if we said we want to instead replace this boiler, are you gonna really upset with us?
No, I mean, certainly.
Can you wave your magic wand and figure out a way to pay for it?
Of course. I would have to look at different resources and, there's, like I said, there's ARPA funds, there's the use of fund, which I
Yeah.
really wouldn't want to touch. I think it comes down to how quickly can we get it, if you decided to get a new boiler and controls, because they would still need to get the controls, I think, right, Peter?
Correct.
Then it would be how quickly could they get that?
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Council Murray, Council Luba.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Once again, I agree with Councilor Murray. This puts us in an untenable position. I mean, this is something that has been going on since fall of 2021. More than ample time to at least address some of these issues, and now we're faced with it right now. And it's presenting a dire situation. Either fix this or there's a possibility of school closing because we can't heat it. And we need to do this. I can't in good conscience agree to just repairing it. I mean, it's something where I understand the need, I understand the urgency of it, but this was a self-inflicted urgency. And it's something that, we'd be spending 85,000 to repair, which is, essentially almost half the cost of replace. And there's no guarantee that it will even outlast these other boilers. Again, I really call on the district leadership to really be able to address these issues. I mean, this is something where, this is another situation where do this or face the consequences. And I'm just getting really, I'm like 3 years now on the town council. I'm getting tired of it. I mean, and it's something that, this is something that could have been added into a capital plan or could have done something last year. We could have been alerted to this fact that this is something that needed to be replaced and let's plan on it rather than, okay, let's wait till the very last moment when we really need it and it's a dire situation and address it. I mean, so just so I'm clear, as far as the resolution is us to transfer the money from the filtration and chillers and do repairs on the boiler, because that's what before us.
Repairs on the boiler as well as purchasing new controls
Okay.
that will work for the others.
And there's no guarantee that new controls would be able to work for any new boilers that we may have to get down the road, or is that?
Well, Peter can answer that, but my understanding is that they will work for them.
That is right, Lisa. I mean, the point is to get controls that aren't as proprietary as Honeywell is. Honeywell requires you to purchase a configuration tool that if that goes out of date, there's no support for that. And part of the problem is too, guys, I think one of the reasons why no one was really approached last year was that we had no way of fixing that boiler last year. We could not get the parts from Dietrich to even fix it. I think that was part of the issue, was that if we were sitting here last year, you would only have one option in front of you right now, and that was to replace the boiler. And I'm sure a
But
lot
at
of
the same
questions.
time, and Pete, at the same time, did you tell us? Did anyone know about it? Was this alerted anyone? I mean, yeah, we may not have been able to repair it, but it's something that would allow us to at least say, hey, this is something down the road. Let's take a look at some of the spending that we're doing and be able to allocate other funding or not do certain things. This is the first time I think any of us on the board are hearing of this, on the council are hearing about this. And so, again, where's leadership on this? Was the Board of Education alerted this, where this could be a huge expense on their budget? Really, that's that's something that I think really needs to be answered and really needs to be looked at by everybody as far as why was this not brought up to anyone prior? Fully understand that we may not have been able to do anything about it, but we could have planned for it. And that now the other question is the filtration that we're now foregoing. When's that going to be added back in? I mean, you've already said how important it is to keep the boilers running efficiently and for other things. When's that going to be addressed?
Well, I'm gonna take a shot at some of these questions. First of all, this happened after the end of the last capital process. When something happens, it's not exactly apparent at that specific moment in time exactly what all the options are. So, A, it happened after the last capital process. B, the district had to look into what was going on, and I fully support our facility staff. They're understaffed. There's not enough people, so they're doing everything they can. They have to rely on people they bring in to assess situations. Probably, in my guess, it was probably late December, even January, before they knew specifically what might need to happen. Conversations do actually happen. We did have a fund for things specifically like this called USIF. Actually, the Board of Ed pays most of the debt for the plan, so that money goes over to the town every year. That fund you call USIF is actually generated at least partially from Board of Ed funds that help pay off the loan for the Honeywell HVAC systems, for the geothermal systems, and also have the additional benefit of providing funds that can be used for situations like this. There's the supply chain issues, which made it very difficult to get any kind of replacements or even people out to assess the situation fully. And probably into the late spring, that's when this became pretty clear that we had to do something different. We managed to get through that winter with this. And so, this is where, it's coming up now, but that's not because of a lack of effort on the part of our facility staff to figure out what the best options would be and how to execute them. I think the supply chain issues last year made it so that at least at one point you couldn't get stuff for over a year at that point. So,
Dr. Miller, I think that even makes my point even more significant, where knowing that you even said by your own standards that this was identified as an issue, even though it happened in September, you identified the issue in December.
No, it
And
did
you
not
know that
happen in
this was an issue in
September. This
December.
happened in October past, as far as I understand it. This happened, and when we call it this, we knew that a boiler failed sometime after the end of the last budget capital process. So this was
Roger,
beyond
tracking that.
October.
Roger, tracking that, I understand that it could not have been included as the last year as part of the capital budget.
Okay.
But you still identified the issue in December, correct?
My understanding is they were trying to figure out what was going on from that period of time, that winter. Yeah, somewhere in that
Okay.
zone.
Oh,
And so
this, you knew this was an issue in December. You knew this is something that could have come up, and nobody was informed about it, and nothing was done about it.
I don't think that's true, but I don't think it's the place to actually talk about everybody who was or wasn't informed. And something like this comes up, we will usually talk internally about what do we do. Do we use the UISF fund? Do we go to the next capital process? What money is available right now to do this? Would it be best to ask at this point, or this point? We're in a capital process right now where those filters, they're still in there, but there was opportunity potentially to use the USIF fund for this. I don't think it was completely apparent, because if it was completely apparent all the way past before the last capital process, it would be in there. If it was completely apparent in October or November, we would have been having other conversations. Right now, it evolved to be the condition and the situation that it is based on COVID, the supply chains, everything else that the district and staff were dealing with. And I do think conversations did occur about this. And frankly, I understand where the frustration comes from. I understand the desire to replace it. And if that's what we do, fine. I think my concern was the way that this came on my radar. I'm a little worried about the winter, but perhaps replacement is the best way to go with this. I'm certainly not against that. I think it came on some of our radars at around this time. So I think, there has been an effort here. It's just that it was confounded by a pretty complicated year last year. And we have very hardworking facility staff that have saved thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars for the district in their efforts. So yes, maybe this could have been done a little differently, but this district and this town have saved millions of dollars on the efforts of hundreds of thousands and millions on the efforts of our facility staff, including Pete. So.
Well, I guess my bottom line question is, when was somebody told about this? When was the Board of Education told about it? Because we're just finding out about it now. So and that's a question for a later point in time, but that is an answer I would like, is find out when the Board of Education was told, if they were told, and when this was presented. Because again, this is something that you've known about and the facility staff has known about from September, October. It was fully identified in December. Understand all the issues that you have, but that's something when we should have been brought in from the very beginning, or the Board of Education or somebody should have been brought in the very beginning, so we could start discussing some of the options. Instead of waiting to see what some of the things were, we could start discussing with you. Let's take a look at this as opposed to this. Now we're faced with spend this money to repair this in the short term, ultimately knowing that a few years down the road, we're going to have to replace it anyway. So we're putting good money after bad. And that's something that I'm not willing to do for this town.
Well, I don't think we would ask you to do that. And I would say it was probably, late winter, spring, where it became evident that the thing would potentially need to be replaced in some manner or form, is my speculation on it.
All right, 1 second, Dr. Will, you have a point of order, Councilman Check.
I feel like there's a lot of motions running high, and I feel like the same question's been asked a bunch of times over and over.
Well, I'm asking to try and get an answer. I'm sorry.
No,
No,
it's okay.
I just,
I know Councilman Lubick does have a tendency to project very, very forcefully, the attorney comes out once in a while, so it's just good to take a little quick breath, but I know we're just trying to get information back and forth, so it definitely is appreciated.
I mean, because again, I am something that I'm very loud. I understand that. But it's one of those things where we are just looking to try and find out why this is brought up to us now. And when this has been something that has been identified since September, and that the need to at least repair, if not replace, was identified back December, even going by the own projections by what's been presented to us as late as April. That's still 4 to 6 months that we could have addressed this appropriately. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
No worries, Councilman, but thank you. And then I think Councilor Collins, question, and then, no, you're good. I thought motion.
I don't think so. I could more agree with Marie and Lou. The only one question I have, that last year you took a chance that you could survive on two of them, that the third wasn't working. So what's the problem now? Can't you wait? Can't you take a chance for another year, and we can decide if we can buy the new one for the next year, or
You want me to take a stab at that? So,
I know it doesn't make sense, but it's like, you know what?
yeah, no, I kind of, I heard most of your response, or question rather. There's nothing to say that we can't try to survive the next 4 months, okay? The problem with, yeah, so the problem with last year was that we were not able to get any repair costs whatsoever. So from my perspective, and the school was aware, there were lots of folks aware that the boilers were even down. Okay, so the issue becomes, from my perspective, is that okay, I have a boiler that could cost a couple $100,000 that, quite frankly, should last longer than it is right now. Okay, so you know, I know what the use of balance is. There's not a lot of other funding to draw from the board of ed side. We weren't sure if we were to go insurance on this route either. Part of the thing with insurance is we have not made a single claim from any equipment failures or liability failures in regards to any facility pieces since I've been here. Okay, so in an attempt to keep rates very low and to get your, the best rates possible, we have not gone that route. Okay. Our deductible on our side is also $10,000. So you're at 20% the cost of fixing that boiler with just that fee as well. And roughly 15% of my yearly budget, just to cover that piece. So I guess the main concern for me here, and that's why we have numbers on doing a new boiler versus fixing, is to really get to the point where now the supply chain is actually starting to catch up, where there are real options on things that we can do here. I think if we had approached you last year, the only thing we would have been forecasting out was, okay, which new boiler are we going to purchase and how long are we going to wait for it? So I guess, maybe shame on us a little bit for that, but some of that was just because there was not a lot of information out there that was really any good. And to be honest, we did run that risk of running the 2 boilers for that period of time. But unlike Birch Grove, who also has two boilers, one boiler at Birch can heat the entire building. So it was designed that way. Our school at the high school was designed that we would need 2 boilers to heat that school during certain times when it is colder. So it just doesn't allow for any reserve capacity with that third. But we really didn't have a choice. You know what I mean? It's not like we wanted to. We just really didn't have a choice.
The last thing is 85,000 for repair. And then down on the road about, 5 years later, is going to be another 400,000, not 200,000, because of the time. Inflation and everything else is going to be about 400,000. So that's costing town 485,000 rather than 200,000. So my question to you, if you would be spending that money inside your house within your pocket, what are you going to do? What's your suggestion? Thank you.
From my perspective, the hard part about this one is that you have treatment. So I personally, if I had the money, and I don't want to speak for Lisa because part of this is financing, okay? So, you know, obviously she wants to hold on to money that she's not spending, okay? Is that I would try to replace the boiler if I could afford it. If I can't, I really have no option, okay, except to fix it. And I can't answer that question from a financial perspective for the town of Tolland. But that's how I would approach my own house.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Khan. Councilman Nuccio for a second time.
I think we should suspend this. I think, if I heard correctly, we have 260 something thousand dollars in the usage. This 85,000 was already allocated. So that would be 85,000 that. is
That's
not
already out of
included,
there.
or is already
And I would
included,
have to
right?
go back and look at the fund to
Yes.
see where we're at. I did provide a report to both entities at the end of June as to what the balances are. I don't have it with me tonight because I wasn't
Okay, I get it,
contemplating
yeah.
to look at the use of that fund. But there was, you know, the balance at year end. Again, I'm a little nervous about using that fund, depending on the amount there. But we do have other alternatives that can be discussed and, you know, it's up to the council as a whole as how you would like to proceed with that, but I can make recommendations.
I think it should be priority, I mean, it's kind of fun from whatever, but it's like, I think it should be priority. There's gotta be if winter is strong, and then as Brian says, let's shut down the school, or get a rental boiler. You got two choices, but there's still, it's like, are they spending now? If not, they spend it 5 years later.
Just to make sure something can get, can't pay me on the floor, so you can't really interrupt.
I just think from a time value perspective, time value of money, you know, we're looking at, again, like this is. I understand we're loose frustrated. We didn't know about this. Now we're getting it and saying we have to do it now because winter's here. And if we don't, blah, 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 you know, there's clearly a very break in the communication chain for us to not be prepared with this and have it put on us to make a decision tonight on an $85,000 spend. I'd like to find out how much it will actually really take to get a boiler. If we go out to multiple places, what's the timeline? Not anecdotally, I want to actually go out and ask how long it would take to get it. And the time value of the money that we're looking at here, I don't see, again, as Sammy said, if this is my pocket, I'm not spending $85,000 on a fix that's gonna give me maybe 10 years, and then I have to spend $200,000 on a new boiler anyway. So I would like to suspend this if possible and have us do a little bit more work, get an idea of how long it will take to get it and what we can do from a funding source.
I guess as a quick question clarification, if we were to. Not so much suspend, but postpone this to the next meeting agenda, would we be able to get enough information to make a clear decision by the end of the month?
Well, that's why I would just like to, I thought Peter did have some legwork already done, but I could be incorrect. And maybe if I can, you know, ask Peter, do you have any of that information already for a replacement and a time frame? For it
Yeah,
to-
I have a direct replacement for what is basically there. A Dietrich unit that's of the same size. That was 189,000. And then we also have a quote with the same capacity, but it's a wheeled McLean unit that is 217,000. Now, from your procurement policy, Lisa, we could choose to do a public quote, public bid, because we're over your 44 grand or so. That is your 1/10 your mill rate or whatever that is on that. Or use state contractors or a combo of both. One issue we will have when it comes time to controls, we are kind of limited to the AEBS side because they currently have the proprietary rights to the allergen system that we currently have for that piece. But as far as boilers themselves, as long as we have one that is sized, appropriately, we don't necessarily have to go back with the same brand.
I think we should do the work. I think we should do the work. We should get the quotes, figure it out. And look at that rather than making a rash decision tonight.
Peter, were these quotes, I'm sorry,
No, that's okay. I was gonna say, after you finish.
okay,
answering
were
questions
these
with
quotes
John.
on state contract, or were they something you just called different vendors on?
They're, these were quotes from the existing vendors that have performed work on our sites. So, one of which, helped you, was actually there for startup at at the point of leakage, okay? Another one was another quote that's done some work for us, that I brought in separately. Because I wanted to see what other people were thinking as well, okay? Because, you know, I am not current with the supply chain. I don't check on things every single day. You know, it's really hard to get a read on certain things. A good example, I've been waiting for mics for the gym at the high school for going on a year now. I can't get Bluetooth stuff in. I can't get cameras. You know, and it's hard to price this stuff out, and nobody wants to guarantee a price either, because of that issue. But I do have at least a couple quotes. I don't mind getting more. If that's the direction that the council and the board wanna take.
Well, the one thing is, if you went out for formal bid, your vendors are going to be expecting you to award a bid, so you would have to have funding in place to do that. I mean, he can get quotes, and have a ballpark, which it sounds like he may have that. And your options are, you know, he could get some more quotes and come back to you with that, but in any event, one way or another, we're gonna have to come up with some sort of appropriation to pay for that. There's a number of things you can do. You can use, if you want to reallocate some of the chiller money that he originally has here, we look at that. We can look at the funds in the USIP fund to see where that's at. We can discuss ARPA if that's how the council would like to choose.
I don't feel like we
other-
can make that
you know,
decision tonight, Lisa.
No,
That's
no,
my
I'm just
point.
saying these are
That's my
some
point, is
things
that,
that-
like, I think we need you guys to do the legwork, get responsible bids, you know, get multiple
Quotes.
bids.
Yeah.
Exactly, and, you know, figure out what you're thinking as the finance person
Sure.
here from a funding perspective.
Mhm.
I don't think it's fair for us to sit here tonight and try to solution this, you know, I
No, I
think.
understand that.
So John and then Colin.
So what I think I heard earlier was that even if we go out today and say, let's go buy a boiler, it could take months before it gets, before it's up and running. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're kind of rolling the dice, I guess, if one of those boilers goes down and we authorize a new boiler, we're still rolling the dice as far as any kind of weather issues that we have this winter, and then any issues we may have with one of those other boilers if it goes down. Now we're talking about school closings. So I'm just trying to think this through, what makes the most sense. I mean, we are taking a risk if we say, let's go ahead and buy a new boiler, and replace it. That's the way I'm looking at this right now. Does that sound accurate? Does that sound accurate?
That was a Pete or Dr. Will, if you, either of you want to address
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I heard Pete say quite a few things tonight. One is that the existing boilers would last 9 years. Another was that, you know, I think in the beginning, you know, being clear that 2 boilers can't actually sustain the entire school if one of those 2 goes down. So, you know, what I heard him say was that, you know, that it would take a couple of months if there was about, you know, one ordered today, and that it's gotten better, because before it was difficult to even get any commitment on anything, but that if we did, it would take a couple of months versus 4 weeks to get the repair. I also heard him say that the existing boilers sounds like they have a remaining life of about 9 years, is what I heard him say. I don't know if that's about accurate, Pete.
Yeah, I would start to add them into the capital plan for that many years from now. So, you know, if if I'm still here, 4 or 5 years from now, when I do my capital plan, my 5-year look ahead, you would see all 3 boilers there. If we chose to do a repair, you would see 2 boilers there if we chose to replace one of the 3. That's what you would see if I was doing my due diligence with forecasting out. I do want to say one thing, and this will kind of maybe shed a little light to Sammy's question. 1 boiler running will keep my building from freezing. It will not allow me to get the target temperature. So I cannot sustain 68 degrees or 70 on days where it's probably 15 to 20 or less. You would see temperatures in our classrooms be 60, 62, with 1 boiler running when temps are that low. And then we would also be stuck trying to heat the building overnight. So you're not trying to recover in the morning in case there is only 1 boiler running. Just not a position you want to actually be in.
Okay, and, you know, in my view, the decision that needs to be made is, do we risk school closures this winter if we order a new boiler? Or do we just go ahead and repair the one we have now within a shorter time frame, and then deal with the rest of it later? So that's kind of where I am now. I don't know what the answer to that is yet, but that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Colleen, and then I have a good comment, then
Oh, sure. I can understand everybody's frustration. I don't think that the Board of Ed staff was trying to hide anything and come running to us at the last minute. Everybody is short-staffed, but saying that if we don't decide tonight, how long will the bidding process take? And I assume that would have to.
If you have to go for a formal bid, that's gonna add at least a month to the process at a minimum. You have to prepare the specs, all that, send it out. You try to get away with a 2-week turnaround for the proposals to be returned. Peter, does that sound about right?
Yeah, that's you have all those statutory requirements with the time to review and all that other stuff. So, yeah, it does add time. If we're able to solicit multiple quotes, from different vendors, whether they be commercial or state, contract vendors, you would be able to circumvent that, public bid piece, and you'd probably get similar pricing anyway. I'm just being honest there. So you probably don't gain an awful lot, because a lot of these places will use the same supply house, and you do want to get somebody that also works on commercial sized boilers as well.
So, the idea of replacing it the same money, I get that, but so that would add another month onto it. So if we decide we want a new one, not only the timeline to, originally was 3 to 4 months, now you added another month, so really that could be 5 months.
Easy.
Yeah, we have a
Plus the
boiler
time
that
it
go
takes for
down,
you to
that
approve
we're-
it before it even gets to the
Yeah.
point. Getting it on a council agenda of funding and appropriation. The amount would probably kick us over the charter requirement, which would mean you have to have a public hearing. That's another 2 weeks. You're looking at least another couple of months if you go that route, depending on how you do it.
So that could.
It all depends.
Really.
There's different options, so that's one of them. If we were to.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was just thinking the timeline myself, at that point, it's 1 to 2 months just to get something out to formal bid, and then 3 to 4 months to actually get it replaced. You're basically doing the same thing as though we just didn't replace it for the entire year. You're gonna get into March, April, that's basically the end of winter. So so it's like, to me, I'd rather just bite the bullet and move forward with the repair. As much as there's a lot of frustration here, I think it's kind of a grin and bear it, but kind of a lesson learned through these conversations, that there just need to be better communication and planning, I think, instead of it kind of coming forward and the waning days of fall and into winter.
I mean, is everybody okay with school closing if the boilers go down?
We don't know though.
But I'm just saying.
Actually, so it basically, everybody, hang on,
But there's,
who was next after Colin?
that wasn't finished though.
Sorry, I thought I kind of assuming you motioned to me, so I took that as a nonverbal that you were all set, so my apologies.
No, fine. No, I was just, I lost my train of thought, to be honest. Go ahead.
To your point, we're saying, well, what if a boiler goes out? What if? There's a lot of things we could say, what if? You know, that there's no guarantee that, you know, that a boiler is gonna go out. I'm taking a look at the school calendar. We're talking 17 days in December. Because that's when I'm anticipating the weather gets cold. 19 days in January, and then 17 days in February. For those over many days, say if we get a sub-zero day inside there, I'm willing to take that gamble on a school closing for that one day. Then rather than spending $85,000, which if we follow the rules, we would still have to go out to bid, correct? We have, because it's over $44,000, which is the requirement. So we would still have to go out to bid. If we follow the rules on this, like we're supposed to, we would still be looking at a month before the repairs were done.
Certain repairs under the purchasing policy, if they're like standard repairs, things like that, don't always have to go out to bid. I know that's something very high. We're looking at 55,000 for the repair. The other 30,000 was for the controls. Still,
Well,
that's.
we still need both of them.
40 some
We need
odd
both of them, correct?
I.
Yes, you need the controls along with the repairs.
If you're
So-
fixing it, I would think.
So that's $85,000.
But Peter has to.
Yeah,
address
but-
that.
Yeah, I mean, Lou, to answer your question, you need at least one boiler control because we have to reconfigure the repair on the boiler that's broken. So you're gonna need at least one control system for the boiler 3, the one that's leaking. The other 2 was thought to package into this because our boiler controls, again, are out, have reached their useful life. And the unfortunate part about that is if we get to a point where we have to reconfigure any of those other boilers, we're going to be in a position where we're going to have to replace the controls on those. So that was the game plan with this piece here. Minimally, you need to do the repair on the boiler and you would need at least one control system. You would not
So-
necessarily need all 3 now. Correct.
So we're talking maybe $60,000 for the bare minimum that we need to do.
Yeah.
Correct.
Correct.
Still above our limit, and I would dare say this probably isn't a run-of-the-mill type of repair that we'd be anticipating, correct? Peter?
No, this is a good sized repair. I mean, the prices of these things are not cheap. And it's unfortunate, but it's just, it is what it is. I mean, and that's why I think this is being presented in front of everybody is that, you know, I did want to give them some options, and that's why, you know, we have a couple numbers of repair expenses. You know, that number that Lisa shared with you is the lower of the 2. A cost of putting a new boiler in was $189 to $217. So there's a little bit of variation in that as well. I would expect those numbers to be similar if we go out to bid as well. So I don't, you know, see those numbers being gouging or anything of that sort.
Thank you, that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Lewis. So I think at this point, to me at least, I feel like the draft resolution should be record and at least have a vote on it. So I would entertain a motion to approve resolution as outlined in 8.4.
Make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Councilor Regan. And I do sense there's some contention, so I'm going to do a roll call vote and start from right to
Just-
left.
So, and just, I'm sorry, just one point of order, just so I'm clear, so I know exactly what I'm voting for.
Yeah.
It's for us to allow the change of scope, so that means that we're allowing the $85,000 to go towards the repairs.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
No, of course. Perfect.
And the control.
And
And the controls, yeah.
And is this what is being recommended to us by town staff?
this is what was presented from Lisa and the Board of Ed staff as well.
It was brought forward by the Board of Education staff for a request for this evening. If I had the money, I would replace it. Again, you're looking at the timing that's involved. I was just checking our purchase. See, so that's what I was looking at. But if you're trying to weigh it all out, you know, you might have to get the repair in place earlier. Not my preference. However, it's all gonna depend on what happens going forward. Now, had this repair extended the life of it, then that probably would have made it a lot easier, because you're not gonna try to replace 3 boilers at the same time.
Thank you.
So I'm not recommending either way, obviously.
Yeah.
It's your decision. I can tell you each way what would happen.
Just want to also point out something too. You're not going to gain any additional energy efficiency over a new boiler in 2022 versus 2005 in an oil-fired unit. Okay, you're still going to be in that 88-90 percentile range, which is where we are at now with the other boilers that are not leaking, 1 and 2. So your decision should not be based upon whether or not we're going to gain any efficiencies either. Okay, because there's just really, there's none out there.
Thank you.
Thank
Pete.
you.
All right, so start roll call vote for my right, Councilman Yudichak,
I'm in favor of the resolution.
Councilman Luba,
No.
Councilman Nuccio,
No.
Vice Chair Regan,
I,
Councilor Khan.
Aye.
Councilor Murray,
Aye.
and I am an aye, so that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2. All right, so the resolution passes. Thank you. All right, that moves us to 8.5 vacancies. We do not have any appointments this evening. But if you want to note the resignation of a like review committee member, and of course, as always, encourage members to reach out to vacancies at tollandct.gov. Reach out to Councilor Luba and Councilor Khan about serving on any of these boards and commissions. Great. So that brings us to 9 old business. We have none, so that jumps us right to 10. Brian, your report for the month of October.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I want to bring in everyone's attention, the community behavioral health survey that we're trying to get as many people into town into taking. I sent out a link to all our department heads, trying to get them to put it on social media. That's going on out of our human services division. A lot of events obviously going on.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt you real quick? Is that the same as the mental health task force? The survey?
Yes, that came out of ARPA.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Just wanted to.
We want to get our money's worth.
Yeah, I didn't know if there were 2 surveys going on or if that was all the same.
That is
Thank
it.
you.
We have a lot of activities going on between Saturday's event here at the Green, which I encourage everyone to go. I will attend at the library, as you heard, have a lot of things this week. I have a meeting with the highest taxpayers here in town to include Eversource, CNC, and Gerber. I met with Gerber today down there at their facility. I also got to walk around and look at the culverts that we need to repair while I was there, but Gerber is growing its footprint here in town, in that not its physical footprint, but it had outsourced manufacturing to other parts of the world, and it's bringing it all back to Tolland to manufacture their machines. I don't know if everyone knows what Gerber does down there, but they make automated fabric cutting machines so you could mass produce clothing. Quite a little niche, but very happy to hear that they're bringing all the manufacturing back into here in Tolland, which will bring more people into our town and more business potentially on the other end. I've been meeting with a lot of every faith-based organization here in town. Thus far, I've visited with the River of Life and the United Congregational Church, just to make connections with them, to share anything that we can utilize each other for, and also to some security assessment involved in that, and to assist with any grant applications for security monies as that came out of my previous career. I'm gonna meet with Susan Hughes on the green next week, and to bring up to speed on the sidewalk thing. And try to meet with some of the other stakeholders. And I believe we're in the, final stages of making a decision in regards to that, but I want some shared, I want people to believe they have a voice, they need a compass sometimes in certain directions. So that's all I have right now, and I'm willing to entertain any questions.
Any questions from councilors about the manager's report? Councilor Luba?
Any unexpected expenses that we can be looking at?
I would like to mark the calendar. There will be an unexpected expense at some point within the next year that I would try to get to as soon as possible.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Any other questions from council members?
Did you email him about the sidewalk, no, in front of the subway, the merging land, whatever?
I did send a communication to Mr. Follier. I left a voicemail because I couldn't reach you initially because you're on a Zoom call about the turn signal, I think, over by Subway, that there's some issue over there.
Lane confusing, whatever it is, that I got. Which you put him down.
Okay, so we kind of had very generic idea of what you were asking about for that. And if there's a signal out, is there a light out? Is that what you're saying?
No, there's merging lane, obviously, the lane is going straight up and then it's turning toward the left, and then at the sudden, there's the opening, little opening toward.
I got you. Okay, so so people are cooking the turn there.
Yeah, it's like the people are going straight up anyway, so.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's been a not common, we've heard that before, according to this is the first time I've had to deal with it. I can absolutely ask the troopers to keep an eye on that. That would be an infraction enforcement at that location. Keep in mind, though, I would guess, and this is I've asked around, we're hitting people from Tolland that are doing that, I'm sure, but to see some enforcement there, I can absolutely arrange for that to happen.
Thank you.
Is it an enforcement issue, Sammy, or
No,
is
it's
it
not.
more
It's like
about
It's not, but
confusion?
like it's very confusion, it's when we are gonna be making a right turn, when there's access to it, to the right turn.
So it's a design, I think a design
It's a
issue.
design, it's a design issue.
Interesting. I'd like to know more about that because it
Right.
obviously was repaved and repainted the arrows on the road. And I know some people, instead of taking that left on the highway, they actually go straight instead. And I know that's been a previous complaint.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
That's right in front of the before the subway,
Yeah,
if you're going from here. And just past the mobile, and then if you're making a right turn toward the 84.
Yep.
And there's a right confusion like there, what should I do, because the lane is coming toward the left, and there's an opening to go into right lane. It's like, it doesn't make sense to me.
I'm happy to look at that. I'll drive it myself tomorrow morning and take a look at it as I come to your place to get a monster. I'll take a look.
We're gonna have to have this conversation again.
I spoke to the engineer.
What's that?
Oh, we're gonna have to have this conversation again.
Why not?
I'll look at
Sammy,
that,
stop
Sandy.
feeding his obsession. He's gonna have a heart attack, okay? Stop feeding his obsession. Make him buy water. I swear.
Don't want that.
Call your mother.
Hey,
Doesn't have one right now.
hey,
I was my one.
Don't be.
he doesn't have one.
Yeah,
I
It's a good
wanted to
idea.
get one so bad. I'll look at that tomorrow, Sandy. I'm interested to see
the design
the
issue.
design on that, but
I
DOT and certain
I
else.
spoke to the supervisor, like there, and I said, what, that's beyond my control, that's a state engineer, I've been told to do my job, and that's it.
I talked about it with Director Lappin today. But I will go there tomorrow with
So I
him.
don't from the
If
subway, making a right
You
turn.
got it. All right, I'll look.
All right,
If not, I'll take it there.
Sounds like a plan.
all right. Any other questions for Brian regarding the town manager report? Just before we switch over to adoption minutes, and then there's the communications and petitions from council members after that, so.
Can I ask one question from Lisa? It's out of the way, but it's like, it's still, I'm going back, a step back. Yeah, if I can.
I guess that's fine. You're good with it, Lisa.
Lisa, as you said, if you have money, you can spend, you can buy the new boiler, right? Right?
Yeah.
Just let me finish it, please. I think there is a so-called rental boiler. I mean, if we go down, boiler number one and two, whatever it is, if it goes down, we can rent.
I don't know.
I mean, it's
I
like,
see
what I'm
Peter's
trying to say,
name up
like,
there.
even if I spend $10,000 for rental, but I'm still saving money. And that's the only thing I'm trying to do is like, it's not something that I'm trying to jeopardize the kids, everything else. I'm not doing it.
I did think of that, but the thing is, I would, and I don't know if Peter's still online because
No,
I'm not a mechanical engineer. However, to rent a boiler, I'm not sure you can even rent a boiler. And you'd have to install it into the piping, into the system to make it all interact. So I don't really think for something of that magnitude, you could get like a portable boiler to be rented. There's, there's all different ways of looking at it.
I've seen those, like, as I said, it's not the first time I've seen those, it's like, it's a trailer. Basically, everything is right on top of it, and if it can heat up the building. You can look at I've seen it in New York, and that's where I'm from, and so I've seen it, and everything is there, but I don't know, it's just a question.
Yeah, I've never heard of that, for a water boiler. It could be forced air that they might be able to
That's what I'm
retro
thinking,
in, but
through HVAC.
looking at the,
It's just a question.
looking at the charter, if something like that were to happen, that could be considered an emergency. If
Right.
we lost heat in the school, and we could have different approaches under an emergency situation for allotting money, but let's get deep into the weeds there.
Yeah, but like I said, it's just a question,
Okay,
Yeah, no, it's,
and thank you for allowing me.
no, of course, Counselor Khan.
Otherwise, it would have bothered me, I would have come out. I have to.
No, I appreciate it. All right, so that brings us to item 11, which is adoption of the minutes. So I've entertained a motion to approve the minutes as laid out 11.1 to 11.2.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Brings us to item 12, correspondence to council.
We had, saw one email regarding the town group.
Thank you, Councilman Murray. All right, that brings us to item 13, chairperson's report. Chair hour is going to be this Thursday, 6:30, 7:30 at the Tolland Library. Prague, we had a policy board meeting on the 28th. There's a presentation from the Connecticut Inspector General on the use of deadly force, police shootings and custody police deaths. There are a few resolutions that were approved, authorizing various contracts like for ClearGov for budgeting software, Circa for natural hazard mitigation plans, as well as an MOA with the Federal Homeland Securities Administration to grant funding for Demas Region 3. And I believe there's an agreement with the Yale New Haven Health for funds for the Connecticut Healthcare Coalition. And this Wednesday, CROG has an executive committee meeting to review the executive director process, the review process for the executive director, followed by executive session and complete financial report. And that's it for me. So we'll move to item 14, communications and petitions from council persons. Councilman Murray.
I just. Today is National Coming Out Day, so for all of our LGBTQ plus friends, family and neighbors, for those of you who decided today was your day, congratulations. I know this is. It's a little weird that we live in a society where you have to come out, but it is important to embrace your true self. So for everyone who had that happen today, and I know a few people, congratulations.
Any other petitions or communications from council members? I think there might have been one. Councilor Khan had reached out to me, and I think reached out to Brian Foley, and I believe even Andy Powell about some kind of community meet and greet or have some kind of event maybe later this year. Just want to share that as a potential discussion item, either for a future agenda or for the next agenda. So you can keep workshopping, but it was an idea that Councilor Khan, I think, brought back maybe over the summer during our joint meeting with the PDC and talked to Andy and Brian, and brought it back up to me again. And so I think the idea was to try and have a central location where kind of similar to the chair's report, having boards and commissions that could convene, kind of meet with the public in a more informal format. So I just wanted to share that idea with folks and maybe get some feedback on it.
That would be a meeting, wouldn't it? How would you,
That's actually the first question you brought up to me, is how you manage it.
but
Yeah.
the nature of having, the congregation of people, it's a meeting that has to be noticed in minutes.
Yeah.
And available to the public through all of our regular things.
Yeah,
It would
that was
have to be-
definitely the FOIA aspect. That's where one thought would be if it was a council meeting, that we manage it as a special joint meeting and invited various groups, whoever could come, we could call to order, suspend the rules, allow individuals to speak to each group, and then, have coffee, have snacks, and then.
How would you minute that though?
What's that?
How would you minute that though? Like, how would you provide that feedback? Like, Lisa's probably twitching. thinking like,
Yeah. No, it's something to definitely consider.
You could do it.
See Lisa running around like trying to, take it, that's technically a meeting.
It's a town hall, whatever you want to call it, but if I could, if you want to call it a meeting, that's what I would do. If you want to call it a gathering, that's fine. If you want to have question answer, whatever, but I'm just trying to bring the community together. That's my.
I think that's something that possibly we could inquire through the FOIA commission as far as if there's a possibility. They're always open to questions. I've got a contact there. I'm sure you do too. And
Yeah.
you
As
can,
he has,
Yeah, the town clerk is probably
chair-
here.
chair
Probably
Yeah.
also. provide
for the
something.
chair out.
and so we could,
There.
yeah, so we could ask for a formal advisement on that and see if that's a possibility.
So.
Mr. Chair, I'm happy to meet with anybody.
You,
I'm not shocked. so.
you've already said in the town manager's report, you're going to everybody, so.
Yeah.
But no, we can definitely circle back and start having some of those discussions, maybe bring it back to the next meeting to see if it's feasible, if it's possible, how it could be laid out in a way that meets the requirements for FOIA, but also allows for all of us to come together, especially, after the contentious years we've been having. I think there's an opportunity to get everybody back together, and just talk.
This has been great. No, I'm serious.
Oh, you all work together great together. Go ahead, there's only a few things, but. Are there any communications and positions from council persons? Councilman Yudichak?
I think the idea is great. It's been talking about this as long as I've known him now, how to bring the community together. I know you probably check with Kathy Begon about
Yeah.
things, but do special meetings, I'm not sure, I can't remember all the rules. Do they have to have every minute? I know when we went to the field, like last year, we didn't take any minutes. We just said we were there at a certain time, we left.
I think, that'd be part of the determination is if there's no actionable items on the agenda and it's just a discussion or, it's just a general meeting reads. It's a matter of ensuring that there's no action taken or decisions made by a majority. If there is say a quorum of a council or a quorum of a board of ed or a quorum of a PZC or ZBA, if you even have this event and only 3 or 4 counselors show up, or if there's less than a quorum, then that impacts it as well. So there's a few different mechanics there.
Okay, and then I believe that's also one part of our goals is to engage the community as well. And then speaking of goals, I was just wondering if it's gonna be coming up about like employee retention. If we talk about that, that's one of my goals, but I never really hear about it in a meeting. So is that gonna come up on agenda?
I could certainly look into
Well,
it. I think
happy
other, yeah.
we addressed employee retention. And, talent retention through, our union contract negotiations. And our, pay, which I don't want to talk about publicly, but, we've gotten stronger. I believe, and we had an employee come back. So, we're doing okay. Better than we have, that's for sure.
What is their long-term plan? So when people want to retire, do we have something as a backup? So they could say, tomorrow I want to retire, they might not have any backup plan.
Are you talking about the continuity of operation, a coup plan?
Yeah, decision.
Yes, I don't have, I meant, in each meeting with all of my directors and my direct reports. When I first got here, I talked about obviously the importance of that. I wanted to get it in writing. I don't have that in writing, as of this time, it's just in regards to the direct reports, so who, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, I just think we've talked about it in the whole, I just wanna,
Yeah,
you know, I think it's a good idea to have.
Yeah.
something in case.
yeah, if not sooner, in the very least, our December meeting, then we have a review of our every 6 months for the town goals, that would definitely be an opportune point to bring that up and maybe have a deeper discussion about it. All right, as well. But if there's any updates you can provide at a future meeting, that would also be great. All right. All right, any other communications and petitions? All right, seeing none, 15, public list participation on any subject in the jurisdiction of the town council. If there's any members of the public that are on Zoom, you can hit the raise hand function or star and I on your mobile device. And I would say if there's anybody in the public in person, but only have staff unless you want to speak.
We're good.
All right. Going once, going twice. Item 16, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn at 9:11 PM.
So moved.
So by Counselor Luba, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Murray. Yeah. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. You're unanimous. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.